Everything fantasy football, you have to ask one question. Don't you deserve a fighting chance? And now, welcome to Fighting Chance Live with your hosts, Kevin Tompkins and Scott Fishbowl 9 winner, Gary Haddow.
Welcome in to Fighting Chance Live. My name is Kevin Tompkins from FightingChanceFantasy.com. With me, as always, is the beautiful, the vivacious Gary Haddow. Gary, how are you?
I'm doing fantastic. It's nice having a Friday edition. Get to start the weekend off with a bang.
That's right. It's a Friday edition. I caught myself jamming to the music beforehand. I always do. I can't help it. It's after how many months? It's banger.
It is. I love it.
So look a little different from previous weeks. So we'll see how this runs here. But we've got Petey with us, Petey Stitz from FightingChanceFantasy.com as well. Petey, how are you, my friend?
I'm good, Kevin. How are you?
I am great. I'm fantastic. It's Friday. I got a drink next to me, some good friends, and ready to talk some.
Cheers.
Let's all. Should we do a quick cheers? Yes, before to a good show.
To a great show.
To a great show. There you go.
Entering the busiest draft weekend of the year, of the off season, whatever it is. I think most of the drafts will be going on. So, what a perfect time to jump in and see what's been happening in the off season. Do some risers and fallers. Pretty excited for this. It's something I've just been wanting to do for a while because I feel like we all have our guys that we were really in on come July, and then here we are. Season's about to start, and who are the guys that you're actually wanting to go all in on? I, for the first time, actually sent the link to this to my home league. It's in year 14. I think like one or two of them I've ever sent the link to. So I have no idea if they're watching right now, but it's going to be really weird doing this because we draft in 15 hours, I think, maybe something around there. Our draft starts. So it's going to be a little nerve-wracking this time doing the show if they are watching.
Absolutely. So for Petey, so go ahead, pimp what you're doing. Obviously we could find you on Twitter. I know you're very adept at the Twitterverse, but for those of you living under a rock, Petey, tell us where we can find you.
At Petey Stitz, as you can see on the banner, PETEYSTITZ on Twitter. And yeah, breaking into the Fighting Chance world about 6 months ago. I did the pod with you guys maybe about a month ago, which was a lot of fun. I have since watched Face Off twice since then.
Right. Love it.
Best movie ever.
And actually trying to break out a little bit into the UFC. Been posting a few articles of that. So I plan on dropping one actually. Well, I'm going to write it after the show and hopefully drop it in the morning. So be on the lookout for that.
Very cool. Definitely awesome. Be promoting that to anybody that can. I mean, Petey read some awesome stuff about UFC, especially if you're going to put down any money on it, and go from there.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're doing risers and fallers. You want to just jump right into it, Gary?
Let's do it. Yeah, sorry, I jumped the gun a little earlier. I'm just a little too excited here. It's Friday, like I said, ready to cut loose, get into it.
The freaking jitters, man. So I'm gonna let you start this off, Gary, because I know you're raring to go. You're ready.
I am. So we'll just start with some risers, and I'm gonna jump in with somebody that I have been low on. I say low. It's kind of like in air quotes, which I guess I can do because there's video. And it's Deshaun Watson. After the Hopkins news came out, I just felt like, yeah, what are they going to do? Like, their offensive line's been pretty atrocious. They just lost their playmaker who was like 150 plus targets every year. Like, what the heck is going to happen? You know, they traded for Brandon Cooks, and all I could think was between Will Fuller's hamstrings and Brandon Cooks' concussions, they're not really going to have much. They brought in Randall Cobb, which at the time just seemed like a geriatric joke waiting to happen. And just, he's old. He used to be a running back, then he converted, but then he had like few hot games last season. And then there's Kenny Stills, if he can stay on the field, whatnot. And of course, they trade for David Johnson as part of the Hopkins trade, and that didn't make too much sense. And I just thought, like, what the hell is Deshaun Watson going to do? He's going to be running for his life. He's not going to have a connection for anybody. And then just kind of as the summer went on, I don't know. I just was thinking about it more and more. And like really good football players are really good at football.
No,
like,
come on.
As it gets, right? And he will figure out a way to make it work. We haven't really seen him without Hopkins before, but maybe sneak peek to coming later. But like Will Fuller is somebody that's I've risen a ton on, and I think he has so much potential. I think that they'll make up for it, and they'll just figure out ways to make it work. With David Johnson, who's a much better pass catcher than Lamar Miller, than Alfred Blue, than the other guys that they've had in the past. Plus, they still have Duke Johnson. I think that they'll just make it happen. And I was really discounting the idea that Deshaun Watson's going to make up with it on the ground and he will run a whole bunch more. But I think that that's true. Again, playmakers make plays. Like, it's as simple as that. And so I really do think that Deshaun Watson, he's a riser for me because of how low he was. I don't even know if I had him at QB7 or something. And I think right now he's just kind of in this group of kind of 3 to 7. I don't really know how to rank him. I think I even had him at maybe even like QB10 because I just couldn't see it happening. And, especially if the injury bug gets there. But now as the season rolls in, I'm an injury agnostic person. I'm willing to overlook past injuries. People change. They make different. I think Will Fuller, and we'll get to it later, but I think Will Fuller has done stuff with his body. And we'll just see what happens. And hey, there's one big downside for Watson, and that is they have a really brutal schedule to start the season. And so as much as I'm rising on him now, I don't think I own him anywhere. I don't know if I will. But in general, this is more of my vote of confidence to say, if he's your guy, like go out and get him. He's going to put up numbers. We've seen it time after time with great quarterbacks. Even if they don't have a great surrounding cast, they still put up quality fantasy numbers.
I like Watson more in a DFS format than I think seasonal for this year. I think he's one that I would want to see on a week-by-week basis, perhaps based on the matchup. As you said, he's finally got a decent running back, a good pass-catching running back, so it'll be interesting to see what he can do with that. Yeah. Will Fuller does scare me, and I know you said we'd get to this later. And I think a lot of people are putting more chips into that stack for some reason. The guy hasn't played a full 16-game season since he's been in the league. He's made of glass. He reminds me like Sammy Watkins. It's like he'll make a play and then you won't see him for 5 weeks. Yep. So I do like Watson. I think where he's going and where you would have to take him, unless I just happen to fall. I haven't been in a draft yet where I've been like 4 to 6. I've always been like at the very beginning or closer to the end, and I miss out on him. So I think if it comes down to having to reach for him, I'd pass. I think that, I don't know. They're just, I think, a little bit better options out there. But in DFS, I would absolutely keep an eye on him, just on a week-to-week basis.
Yeah, and it looks like, sorry, I just, real quick, it looks like he is going around QB6 right now. It looks like 609 is where on Fantasy Football Calculator he's going. So I know it's kind of a mid-range, and like you said, I don't know if the three of us are ever going to go in on a quarterback in that range, but get your starting guys and go there. So if it's what you're interested in. Kevin, you were going to say.
Oh no, I was just going to say, as far as Watson, I'm not outright targeting him, but I've been slamming best ball lately. And if you're talking about stacks that are supremely profitable and not expensive, if you can get Fuller and Watson, because they go about the same range, Brandon Cooks, you've got injuries to worry about. But if they hit, man, those can compete with the Chiefs. Those can compete with the Ravens stacks, those big time Cowboy stacks. So if you're looking at into that vantage point, I really like Watson as a quarterback. I think he's just going to be kind of running for his life a little bit. But, it's undeniable. He's got the talent. He's going to make things happen because Deshaun Watson is a supremely athletic quarterback. Randall Cobb is a sneaky late round guy. He's just got a great target floor. Say something happens to one or both of those guys, Randall Cobb is going to be pretty much the guy next to David Johnson. Who knows about his health? So, as far as Deshaun Watson, I was a little bit hesitant with the weapons and how fragile they are. But, looking at him, like you said, Gary, great players make, they have great weeks and make great plays. And yeah, so I'm back in on Watson, but I'm just not seeking him out as a target. Just really, if I'm in that range and he falls to me and it makes sense, I'll take him.
Yeah. Fair enough. Petey, who's your QB riser?
Danny Jones.
Ooh, dimes.
I like Danny Jones. When he was taken 8th overall, everyone was like, "Who?" I'm sorry, was he 8th? I can't remember now. It was early in the first round. Yeah. It was 6th overall. Thank you. I'm sorry. He wears 8. That's what it is. What's that?
Point stands.
But he set a lot of interesting rookie records last year. Off the top of my head, was the 4 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, like 3 games in a row. 3,000 yards, 24-12 touchdown interception, 87 QB rating. For a rookie, I'm impressed.
Yeah.
And I think that they're going to be in a lot of competitive games this year, which means he's going to have to air it out. And if his receiving core can stay healthy, if Evan Ingram can stay healthy, you guys talked about it a couple of weeks ago with the tight ends. You guys loved Evan Ingram as long as he can stay healthy.
Yeah.
So, hey, if Evan Ingram's going to put up all those points, someone's throwing him the ball. It's going to be Danny Jones.
Hell yeah, definitely.
And you can get him fairly late in rounds. I don't think I've seen him go before in a like in a 1 QB. He's going 10th, 11th, maybe even further.
Yeah. Yeah, it's nuts how Petey's going, and their defense is garbage. They may have the worst defense in the NFL right now.
Probably.
Yeah, for your young quarterback like that, for him to have he's got just a tailor-made situation, because you've got veterans, on the outside, and then you got Slayton, you've got Tate, you've got Shepard, you've got Ingram, hopefully health
think of all
dependent.
Those dump-off passes he's going to get to Barkley.
Yeah,
I actually
Barkley's going to have 100 catches this year.
Right. I have Jones and Barkley. It's either Raz or Draft the Giants. I can't remember, but I stacked those two. Actually, it was Draft with Giants because James Grande is in the league with me. He actually sent me a message. He's like, damn.
Yeah, that's absolutely profitable. That's, getting Barkley and then getting Daniel Jones, because Daniel Jones is one of those guys that just, for some reason, they're just not, they see the Giants as, obviously they're going to be they're not going to be a great team. They have a pretty bad defense. They're going to be probably a 5-6 win team, but they're just going to be throwing. He's got safety valves who can make catches, who are, pretty dependable in the grand scheme of things. You're not running out, undrafted rookies or unproven guys. Tate's done it in the league for years. Shepard's done it in the league. He's just been injury prone. Slayton's up and coming. Barkley's a pretty much a generational talent. So, what better situation can you have as a young quarterback like Daniel Jones has? That's why he just sneaks under the radar.
And you left out Evan Ingram and all that too.
Yeah, exactly.
He's got a proven tight end. If he can stay on the field, he's proven. But even for dynasty purposes, he showed great rapport with Slayton last year. So you got 2 rookies that are just going to basically grow up together on the team, and they're already off to a great start. So.
Yep. Yeah, and he had 4 300-yard games. That's the biggest thing. So if you have any leagues that have any points bonuses, I think he's the type of QB that, he's going to have his interceptions. He's going to have issues. But I think in general, more often than not, he is going to light the field on fire with yards. He's going to be very Jameis-esque from last year. And I don't believe that last year Daniel Jones ever had all of his pass catchers all healthy on the field at the same time. And you have somebody at every level of the field. So you have Barkley, you have Ingram, then you have Tate, and then you have Shepard, and then you have Slayton taking the top off. And reports out today said that Sterling Shepard is just roasting their cornerbacks, which doesn't really say a lot. It's easy to beat up on kindergartners, but it still says that they're meshing, things are happening. So I'm really excited to see what they can do. And they're not going to stop anybody, so they're gonna have to just keep throwing. And We all laughed about it at number 6, like you said. And I feel like the Giants are actually a little bit more vindicated with what Daniel Jones has shown so far.
Yep, for sure. Gettleman dodged a bullet there because how bad did he get roasted?
Definitely.
My quarterback riser, and I think I talked about him either last week or the week before, is Cam Newton. And this is my Paul Heyman reference with this. There's nobody better at accentuating the positive and hiding the negative like Bill Belichick. Bill Belichick is going to get the most out of Cam Newton, provided he is healthy. He has profiles in that offense that he's very familiar with. A pass-catching safety valve in James White. Big-bodied young receiver like N'Keal Harry. I know he hasn't had a great camp, but, he still has that upside to where, Cam Newton is used to throwing to guys like he threw to Devin Funchess, like he threw to Calvin Benjamin. And then he obviously had McCaffrey for a little bit there. So I don't think the touchdown upside is going to be super high with Cam Newton, but I still think he has some stuff left in the tank with his legs too. He's only thrown over 24 touchdowns once, and that was his MVP season in 2015. But, nobody's expecting him to go back to, MVP Cam Newton. But you look at the division, you got Miami, Buffalo, and the Jets. So they Patriots have at least an above average defense to very good defense. They're going to be in a very winnable division. I see no reason why Cam Newton can't capitalize on that and be at least a top 12 quarterback. That's where I have him ranked at number 12. There's not much room after that. Just based on situations and other talent there, but I think this can be kind of a reclamation season for Cam Newton to just get back and say, "Hey, I'm still alive, guys."
Completely. I think he's going to have a high variance that really is just going to come down to is he going to get the rushing touchdowns? And I remember we were talking about Josh Allen. I can't remember who was on the show with us, and I was like, well, let me look at Cam's rushing yardage. And I was like, whoa, that's way too much. Like, Cam has 3 700-yard rushing seasons. His rookie season, he had 14 rushing touchdowns. Like, that's bananas. Like, I just can't even believe it. But, yeah, I mean, I am just more excited from a not even fantasy related. Like, Bill Belichick gets to have Cam Newton and do whatever the hell he wants with him because he has this ridiculously cheap contract that's up to $7 million, I believe. It's right now just a $1 million base. Bill's going to do whatever the hell he wants, just see what it's like to have a rushing quarterback and just kind of go from there. They're going to be fun to watch, and their defense got a huge hit when COVID not knocked out, but 6 of them opted out.
Right.
So this is just going to be an interesting team all around. And Cam has the upside to be a top 5 quarterback. You're getting him late enough. He's worth it. For me personally, if I'm taking Cam, I'm just going to take somebody in the same range, like a Jimmy or something like that I can just pair him and just see who do I get something with one of them. Worst comes to worst, you drop him. It's so late. It's not going to be a high impact.
You get your upside floor play and just keep them together. And then, if you get your upside play, perfect.
Yeah, it'll be fun. I'm still nervous as hell about their wide receiving core, though. They have nothing but. I mean, do you need much if you can run and if you have a running back? I don't even know who it's going to be, and you have Edelman.
Yeah,
just feed Edelman the ball.
Well, there you go too. With the run. Sorry, Petey. I just wanted to say with the running back situation, that's going to help Cam too, because we know Sony Michel just came up back off the pup, but we don't really know what shape he's going to be in 13 days when technically 15 days when their game plays, but it's Damian Harris, James White, that could just all go to Cam Newton, at least at this point, unless Sony Michel is going to be healthy for week 1. So that's another feather in his cap right there.
And that's what I was going to say as well. I mean, who is Cam Newton really throwing to except for Edelman in that offense? I don't trust N'Keal Harry at all. He couldn't flash with Brady. I don't know if he's going to have that rapport with Newton, especially with whatever limited practices they've been able to have. And like you said, the unknown in the backfield, it's really going to be the Cam Newton show. Like, you don't think if they're within 5 yards of the goal line, he's going to take it in himself.
Yeah.
I mean,
right.
even if he doesn't get the 14 touchdowns that he had, in years past and whatever, I mean, if they're 3 yards out of the end zone, he can just fall forward and it's a touchdown. So, I mean, there's definite. It's risky, but there's definite upside to getting him as late as you can.
Yeah, well, so we'll see what happens. I mean, I think everybody's just excited to see him, and we'll kind of go.
We didn't even talk about Sanu either.
Yeah, well, Sanu will probably throw a couple touchdowns. So will Edelman.
Yeah, probably.
And they'll just be going like wildcat with those guys, and we'll see what happens.
I think JB has the most shares of Mohamed Sanu than anyone else does anywhere in the world.
Probably.
Yeah, you're probably right on that.
I'm pretty sure he traded for Sanu the other day in the league that we just drafted it on Monday. I think he already made that trade.
Well, hopefully it hits, and we can all be right. Cam can hit, and JB can happy with his Sanu.
Yep, get those 50 catches for 450 yards.
All right, so moving on with running backs, I'm actually going to start us out here again just because this is now near and dear to my heart. So I put in James Conner. He's my running back I've been rising on because I am, like I said, injured, sick. I'm willing to see what I can do. And I think that I put this in maybe on Monday or Tuesday, and it just happens to be that same league that I said I kind of sent the guys the link for this show right now. In that league, I just traded for Conner today, and it's this like 5-player keeper league. So I think of it as my mini dynasty league. I actually had no picks in the first 5 rounds of our draft coming up, which is probably not a good strategy, but I'm still willing to go for it. Anyway, so I got Conner there. And then in my dynasty league that drafted last week, I also traded for Conner, kind of putting my money where my mouth is. So I get that really when it comes down to Conner, there's only one thing, and it's health. He's going to get the usage. We know Tomlin likes to go with a single back when possible. If he is in, he tends to be a top 10 back, if not a top 6 back. If he plays all 16, if you knew right now he was going to play all 16, he's probably RB6, maybe RB7. Dalvin and Henry, it's kind of going to be in that range for me. And so I think it's just a super high upside. That being said, if he doesn't play 16, my concern is how many games is he actually going to play. But, hey, we'll see what he does. I mean, I think that the Steelers as a whole just have that 2019 dip that's hitting them because their offense was god-awful and just one of the worst there. Worst that we've seen in years and years. So at this point, if you're in drafts that are coming up this weekend, I say take a flyer on Conner. You're probably going to be getting him in the 4th, maybe even the 5th. And I definitely think it's worth, seeing what you can get. And, worse, it's going to suck if he does get injured, but I think you're probably able to plan ahead, try and make sure that you just get stacked with a little bit more running back depth if he's somebody that's there. It looks like, man, I said in the 4th on Fantasy Football Calculator, it looks like he's creeping up. He's the RB15, right behind Aaron Jones, who is actually who I traded to get Conner, and looks like he's going at the back of the 2nd right now. So, but after Conner, like you just have this tier of guys. Like, who would you name someone in this tier that you would rather have over Conner as of right now? Chris Carson, Le'Veon Bell, David Johnson, Todd Gurley, Fournette, Jonathan Taylor, Melvin Gordon. To me, Carson's the only person that I think is a little bit more rock steady. The other guys just have so many question marks. I wanted to say Bell before, but Gase hates Bell. It's just be coming out more and more. I don't even know if Bell's going to be on the team midway through the season. So, yeah, I'm all in on Conner. Hopefully other people agree with me. I know on Twitter today a lot of people are just like, I can't buy in. I've been burned too many times. Well, it's worth seeing if we can make it happen.
I concur with everything that you said. I would just add that if you are going to take Conner, just make sure you get like Jalen Samuel or Benny Snell very, very late and handcuff them. I mean, if you subscribe to handcuffing, you already know that. But if you don't, if you're against it, I don't know why you would be, but I wouldn't take Conner then, just because I don't think he's made it to week 15 in the last 2 full seasons that he's had. So when it comes championship and playoff time and everything like that, I don't know if he's one that you can really rely on. Man,
if you can.
If you can, great, absolutely. I'm not taking anything away from his ability on the field. It's just that, when you say that there's too many question marks, it's a big question mark on Conner when we haven't seen him do anything for fantasy playoffs in the 2 seasons that he's had. So
Yeah.
just handcuff him. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying don't take him. I'm just saying if you're going to do it, if you're going to make that investment, protect your investment later on in your draft. Make it a point at round 13 or 14. Even if it seems like a reach, go for Samuel or Bell, whichever one.
Yeah, definitely. And it seems like it's gonna be Bell. There were a lot of talks that Samuel was gonna get
Snell, Benny Snell.
Yeah,
I combined it and called him Bell.
And Anthony McFarland they drafted, but it seems like he's taking a little while to come on. So
it's Snell there. But hey, you know what? I subscribe to the handcuffing. It is cuffing season. We're almost there for all you ladies out there. Not for me or Gary or Pete. Anyway, enough of that shit. So James Conner, that's the thing. If he was healthy, if he could, stay on the field, he's a first round pick. He's the end of the first round pick. Yeah. And that's the thing. And you can get Snell super late. You can get all three if you really want to, because they're all cheap. Samuels might be the odd guy out there. We'll see about that, but I just don't know if they're going to carry 3 or 4 guys. But Connor fits everything that the Steelers do. They run power. He's great out of the backfield. Tomlin loves the guy. So if he's healthy, they always go with that one guy, and maybe because you really only seen Jalen Samuels when Connor's been in and out of the lineup. You've only seen Benny Snell when Connor's out of the lineup. So when he's there, he's good to go. That's the only thing that you're weighing with Connor is how many games is he really going to play. But sharp drafters are now seeing that, hey, I can get this, first round talent in the 3rd round.
Yeah.
That's why you're seeing him creep into that second. And I don't, he's one of the few guys that I will draft. I'm very on board with 0 RB, but if I'm going to draft a running back, Connor is one of the guys I will draft with Carson. Sure. So he's got that talent. It's just what are you going to pay for him? And mid 3rd, if you can get him in the mid 3rd, I think you need to smash that. So I'm all about James Conner. I think, he's a value anytime after like the last couple picks of the second into the 3rd. If you find him in the 4th, wow, good for you.
Hell yeah. All right, take us away, Kevin. Who is yours?
So my running back riser, somebody that I have been banging the drum on last few weeks here. That's Philip Lindsay, a guy that I like over Melvin Gordon. As far as talent-wise, I think that it's going to be way more of a split in Denver than a lot of people think, even though, they paid Gordon 2 years, $16 million. A guy like Philip Lindsay, he's got a chip on his shoulder. He's been glossed over so many times, even going back to college. He was an undrafted free agent, and all he did was come in and rush for 1,000 yards his rookie season. And then he did it again last year. There's only Philip Lindsay is one of 5 running backs the last 2 seasons to have 1,000 yards and 35 catches. The other 4, McCaffrey, Barkley, Mixon, and Zeke. So he's in pretty good company there. So, even with Denver paying Melvin Gordon, they're still, looking at the metrics as far as Philip Lindsay, his Pro Football Focus rushing grade. Lindsay was 8th last year, Gordon 23rd. He has the edge over Gordon in elusive rating, receiving grade. They're about the same, and a lot of people look to Melvin Gordon as well. He can pass catch. Lindsay has been working on that in the offseason and working on his route running, and Pro Football Focus pretty much has them dead nuts even. So I think you're going to see talent win out, and Lindsay, you're paying a 8th round price for him versus Gordon, where you have to take in the 3rd, maybe the 4th, and at that range, why not just take the guys you think are going to be top 8 wide receivers and guys like Phelan and Allen Robinson, guys like that. I'm not touching Gordon at that price. So why draft Gordon when you can draft Lindsay in the 8th, a guy that has done it the last 2 years? We've seen the inefficiency from Gordon. So, I'm gonna put my chips in for Philip Lindsay, and I think talent just wins out in the end.
And I don't know. I just don't know if I'm gonna ever own either of them. Like, I get that of the 2, like, I understand Melvin's role and they paid him and whatnot. Lindsay, I just don't understand the Melvin signing. Like,
it was a weird signing when they did it. That was the first thing I said was I looked at it, I was like, why?
Yeah. Royce, it's not as if Royce Freeman was that bad. Like he just needed maybe some more run, and he seemed to get better and better as the season went on. Not as if he was ever like Melvin Gordon status, but I don't know. I just feel like they're going to eat into each other. I'm just probably staying away from this entire offense. I feel like all of them. I just feel like everyone's just going to cannibalize each other, and I don't know if Drew Lock is going to be able to be enough to lift everybody up. But at the same time, I do think in terms of the value, if you're going to go on one of them, then yeah, like Lindsey makes sense just because who knows how Melvin Gordon's going to do to be able to adjust to the altitude, like he said, is having trouble with. And, I think it's going to be more of a split than just being a primary back. So it'll be a 1A, 1B type thing.
Yeah.
I took them both in Rasball. And so for being a best ball situation for the first half of the league, I think I struck gold, because I think if they're both capable of putting up the numbers that you guys just said that they're capable of putting up, put them in a best ball situation. You don't have to worry about, which one's going to go off. Now, later on in the season in Rasball, when it goes to, normal lineup setting, yeah, I'll be pulling what hair I have left out, which isn't much.
But you should know who's going to come out of that by then, though.
Exactly. By week 9, it's there should be a clear-cut front runner. So I think best ball situations is the best scenario for the Denver backfield.
Yeah, and there's something to be said about Lindsey's pass protection too, because that's he's not certainly a big guy or stocky guy. So maybe that factors into maybe Gordon seeing more of a third down role. At least at the outset. So that's a very fair criticism of Lindsey. Other than that, though, I think Lindsey checks every box as far as what you want in a running back. Maybe he doesn't have that size, but he puts it all out there. I sound like a motivational speaker when I'm talking about Philip Lindsey, but that's just a guy with a chip on his shoulder, and those are the guys that you want on your team, the guys that are chronic overachievers.
Yeah.
Kevin, I want to see you talk about Philip Lindsey and your best Matt Foley motivational speaker impression.
Oh my God, you're gonna make me do that right now. Oh man, I haven't done that since grade school. Well, I don't know. You ain't gonna be living in a van down by the river. And
no idea what the hell you.
Aaron's upstairs, going, "What the hell just happened?"
The one thing
get yourself Philip Lindsey.
The one thing I do really like about him is that last year obviously we were paying a premium. I think he was going in like the 3rd or the 4th round, and so getting him with the dip, like we knew going into last year that Royce might still be a thing, and there was going to be a split. Obviously, he's on the back end of that now as being the second, but it's definitely worth, in the 8th round, the other guys that you're getting. I don't think it's a bad thing. It's just a matter of what your roster construction is and whether or not it's the, type of player that you're going to be going for in those rounds.
Right. Yeah. So let's hop off the Lindsey here. Let's go to Petey's pick here as far as his running back riser.
I'm going with a rookie in Cam Akers here. The LA backfield, Darnell Henderson, just got, I believe, hamstring injury. It was a soft tissue injury, which that plagued him all last year as well. And behind him, who do you have? Malcolm Brown. This is going to be Cam Akers' backfield. Yeah. I don't know why more people aren't talking about him. Sean McVay at one point was like, oh, yeah, we're going to have a running back by committee. It could even be a 4-headed monster, which I don't even know who the 4th guy is. But at the end of the day, it's the same story. It's the same story we saw last year when he said, oh, yeah, it's going to be a shared committee because Gurley can't handle that much. And Gurley popped off, 15 touchdowns? No, it was 12 touchdowns last year. Because even just those short, 10 yards out, they're feeding it to Gurley. It's going to be the same thing with Akers. Just because he's going to be the only one that you are going to be able to trust. Henderson's probably going to be injured, and Brown, if they trusted Brown, they wouldn't have drafted Akers.
Or Henderson.
Good point. So, I think just by sheer process of elimination, it's Cam Akers, and you can find him again in the 4th, 5th round.
Yep.
So
Yeah,
I mean, it's
like
interesting to see what they do with that O line. That's my biggest question mark. I mean, we know the offense is supposed to be good, but
but Akers didn't have that great of an O line at Florida State.
Yeah.
So it's intriguing. I guess I would leave it at that. It's definitely somebody to keep your eye on because,
of course,
he could easily be your RB2 that you're finding in a late 4th round. So get your top RB in the first, get a couple of receivers, or hey, even if you wanted to swing and go with like a Kelsey in the second or a Kittle in the second, get a wide receiver, wide receiver 1 in the third, and then come back and grab Akers. He'll be there for whatever reason.
Yep.
Yeah,
I agree.
For sure. Yeah, if you're talking about them using more of the 12 personnel coming into this season, that's going to put Johnny Munn as the second tight end, especially in running down. So, that's only going to help Akers too because he's a pretty elite run blocker. They're not going to be putting Gerald Everett out there. He would be in the Higbee role if anything, and Higbee's should be out there, most of the time there. So, Munn's going to play in that 12 personnel. So, they'll do everything they can to maximize the shit they have at offensive line, for lack of a better term.
You got to put up this comment, the bottom one. O-line, like no line, am I right?
Yeah, that's pretty accurate right there. I love it.
38-year-old Andrew Whitworth.
Us Kevin's got to stick together, so I like that. So
any relation to Nick Chubb?
No.
Yeah, really.
Someone else asked that in the chat.
So we're gonna move on to wide receivers here. And I'm gonna take the lead at least on this one. My riser for wide receiver is Devontae Parker. Now I think he's going at the end of that big tier of wide receivers. Once you start getting through guys like the Charks, McLaurins, the Suttons, guys like that. But you're talking about Devontae Parker, who, it took him a while to break out, but he finally broke out in a big way. Cause you're talking, he had the top 17 receiving grade among wide receivers. He had one of the top 10 receiving grade in single coverage, and he was tied with Kenny Galladay for the best graded wide receiver on contested targets in 2019. And they're not going to get much better from whoever's throwing in the ball, whether it's Fitzpatrick, who we know is just a gunslinger and just going to heave it up to him, or Tua, and that's going to only get better there as he's, I thought Tua was going to really redshirt, and I think, Gary, you said that too. But I think it's looking more and more like he's going to play a handful of games this year, the way, people are talking about him. So I'm not, I really do like Fitzpatrick as a guy you can just snag super late, but Tua is going to play a little bit more, than the 0 games that I thought he was going to play. Yeah, big hot take, Kevin. But yeah, so clearly with Parker, he learned how to use the physical gifts that he had, albeit later than usual wide receiver breakouts. But, when Tua enters in that quarterback room, he's on the field, he's not just going to disappear. I mean, we know the connection that Fitzpatrick and Parker had. So, I don't think Parker just goes away, and I think Miami's going to be throwing the ball a lot more than people realize, especially, being a 7-8 win team, and they're going to be in every game they play. They're not just going to lie down. Brian Flores has them coached really well, and how many times have we talked about that, Gary, about Miami and how their system is it's really coming together for them. So, give me. I'm more than happy to draft Parker in that Chark McLaurin tier, but you can always get him after that, and he tends to fall into that Stephon Diggs, Will Fuller, Marquise Brown kind of range. And I don't know why, but I'm happy to scoop him up where I can.
Yeah, he's definitely more of a traditional one, it seems like, than some of those other guys that have more just speed attributes or whatnot. But I mean, his last season was amazing, and I really do. I mean, like you said, everything is sounding like it's going to be at least the first half of the season is going to be Fitzpatrick. They have a tough schedule out the gate, but I I don't think that they're in any rush to say, oh, we're losing, we need to switch QBs. Like, no, that's not their plan. They have their 5-year plan. They're going to let it happen. And yeah.
What is it? Don't die? I'm just kidding. I just watched Big Daddy the other day.
Maybe it's a 10-year plan.
Do you guys think Preston Williams has a chance to outscore Devonta Parker? So obviously we didn't really get to see as much of Preston Williams when he finally came on.
No.
He's got a chance. I think he's got a chance. He's got at least a puncher's chance because he was right there with Devontae Parker when they were both on the field together. Now, he's coming back from injury. Excuse me. I think it's going to be close to even as far as, perception right now is that, why draft Parker? You can get that Preston Williams screaming value, 5 rounds later. But, I think that Preston Williams is going to be a lot more boom bust. I think Parker's at least asserted himself more as the consistent option there, especially with Fitzpatrick there. So while I like Preston Williams and I will take him if he's there as far as a high upside guy later, I just don't know if he can at least get up to that ceiling, at least this year. Yeah.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see how he comes off that injury.
I think Parker is just another clear case of, he got Gaced. And when Adam Gase left, then we saw his true ability on the field. So I think he is going to be that true wide receiver 1. And I don't think, if Preston Williams does it, hey, even, 1 out of a million. So you're telling me there's a chance? There's a chance that he'll get it. But I just, like Kevin was saying, I think that Parker is just the more consistent option in that receiving core. That if Preston Williams is going to match or exceed what Parker does, it's going to be a very risky chance at doing it. So it's not something you can bank on. Yeah,
it's not the 5th-year breakout. It's the post-Gase breakout.
Exactly. And it was really, really telling, at least in the offseason, when Brian Flores came in and decided to retain Devontae Parker, because that at least let me know that, hey, clearly they see something in him. Yeah, it's taken a while for him to truly break out, but at least they see enough in him to give him another shot. So I think that was very telling when you're talking about last, February, March, when they retained him. And, he was going at the end of drafts, like at the last round, if he was even drafted. So, yeah.
All right, Petey.
I'm going another rookie here, and that is in Jalen Reagor. Again, pretty much for the same reason I picked Cam Akers as my rising running back. Who else is Philly throwing to? Obviously, they have Ertz and Goddard, and Goddard's stock, in my opinion, has gone up a little bit, especially with the injury scenarios that they have going on. Miles Sanders just got hit with an injury. I haven't seen the latest on that one, but also 2 of their offensive linemen are now out as well. So I think in order to move the ball in this offense, it's really going to have to go through the air. And aside from Jalen Reagor, who else are they throwing to? They've got, Djax, who's going to be a boomer bust. He always is. You have, Greg Ward, who did come along, late in the season last year, but outside of that, you got J.J. Arcega-Whiteside. I don't know. Reagor came off a 12-touchdown season his final year last year in college, I believe. So, if they get into the red zone and he's out there on the field, if it's going to go to a receiver, I'm going to think it's going to go to Reagor. Obviously, Ertz and Goddard are going to be big options for Wentz to throw to, but, to really stretch the field, I think it's going to be the Reagor show. So, and you can get him pretty late. Again, I think he's going 9th, 10th, somewhere in there. So even later, I think in some cases. So, with the depth at the position where you can find your wide receiver 1 in round 5, take a chance at Reagor as your wide receiver 3 later on at round 10.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, I did that in one of my best balls. Jalen Rager is my wide receiver 3. And here's the thing about him too, because yeah, you mentioned they've got D-Jax and Alshon Jeffrey potentially coming back if he gets on the pup list. So he's going to be seeing a lot. Did they place him on there officially?
I think he's on there.
Well, I think he should be. I think he's on there. It's whether he's going to stay on there, is the question. And probably does. But Rager's going to be seeing a lot of number one corners. He's going to be, if he's playing the X position, he's going to be seeing a lot of number one corners, and that's tough. That's tough for Jalen Rager because it really would have been nice to see him in the slot. But that said, very few rookies get the opportunity to see the possibility of 100 targets out of the gate. I mean, you very rarely see that, and that could happen in this offense for the Eagles, where you have, Ertz and Goddard, and then you have question marks everywhere. So, right. The Eagles clearly love him. They're going to give him every chance. But it's going to be tough. Maybe in the outset, if he can really assert himself and, if he's going up against those number one corners, great. It's only going to help him in the long run. But if you're talking about, the sky's the limit for him as far as being an X receiver, being that guy that pretty much he's going to be the only guy if something happens to Sean Jackson. So, but I'm in on Rager, certainly.
It's the first year I can remember where I'm actually interested in actually drafting rookie wide receivers, even in redraft. And just those 3 alone, Rager, Lamb, Judy, not to mention we have Jefferson, Brian Edwards, who I'm extremely high on. All these guys, they're going to step into immediate roles. And it's the first time where, you could even be starting a rookie even week 1 and actually feel somewhat okay with it. And it's crazy that in Dynasty, it doesn't fit this way. But for right now, it seems like Rager is the wide receiver 1 kind of for all rookies right now in terms of being able to actually start week 1 and have tangible impact for your fantasy team. So
for sure. Yeah, it's really weird because in years past, don't trust the rookie wide receivers, and then we just get an absolute influx of them. Yeah, coming into the league at the same time. This could be that 2014 class all over again.
I can't believe I forgot to say Brandon Ayuk when I listed the rookies, especially if Debo's not on the field, even though he has his own hamstring issue. But whatever. So moving on to mine, I alluded to him earlier, and that is Will Fuller. He's just been rising and rising for me. Reports came that he has been focused the entire offseason on changing the way that he works out, on kind of almost rehabbing his body, adding weight, adding muscle in the right areas. Hey, shame on me if it's wrong. It's going to be the same thing as James Conner. But when he is on the field, he's like the wide receiver version of James Conner. When he's on the field, he is one of the most electric, one of the best fantasy assets you can have on a per game basis when he is actually out there. And there's no hop there. That's 150 plus targets that need to be distributed. And it's not a zero sum. They're not all going to go to him, but man, if Will Fuller played 16 and if Will Fuller had 120 plus targets, like, holy shit, he would put up so many points. I'm willing to buy in on it where you're getting him. He's actually moved up quite a bit, which is troublesome. He's now going at the back of the 6th. But, for someone like myself that drafts very RB robust, I'm happy to do, potentially 3 running backs, even a tight end. And then all of a sudden I can get like Robert Woods, Marquise Brown, and Will Fuller in like 3 consecutive rounds, and that's just money in the bank, in my opinion. Would love to have that as a start. So if it could work out, I'm all for it. I understand the risks that come with it because it's a wide receiver. I kind of feel they're dime a dozen, and he is one of those guys that going into next year, if he plays all 16, we will be talking about as a top 12, top 15 wide receiver going into next year.
I like him. As long as he can stay healthy, I like him. I like him as, even a late round wide receiver too. Again, you have to understand the risks that come with it. Yeah. But, the payoff could be incredible. I got to give a shout out to the family here for just 1 second. I believe it was week 8 of last season. Jen Piaceni called for DFS, she was like, "Start Will Fuller. I promise you, start him. You won't regret it." Blah blah blah. I forget who he was playing. He went off for like 150 yards and 3 touchdowns that game.
Yep.
I remember that.
I mean, so like the boom potential for Will Fuller is bananas.
Yeah.
But you have to understand the risks that come with, and it's so crazy how the universe works like that, because he has that potential for a 3 touchdown, 150-yard game, but you got to keep that injury potential in the back of your mind all 16 games of the year.
Yeah. Yep. He's 3 snap potential and the 3 touchdown potential.
Right.
Yeah, and 7 target per game. That's what he had last year with Watson. So, I mean, when he was on there, he was getting targeted, and now there's more targets to go around there. But yeah, like you pretty much nailed it with the James Conner comp as far as being, if he's on the field, if he's going to play, he's a top probably maybe 15 wide receiver. I think it's fair to say, just the upside alone. He's going to win you weeks when he plays. That's why, you're going to see him go in like the 5th round of best balls, because he can win you multiple weeks just, with his, like Petey said, 150 yards, 3 touchdowns. Boom. There you go. So yeah, that's the thing though. If you're talking about managed leagues, where you have to set a lineup, it's really difficult to put Will Fuller in your lineup. Certainly week to week. You just got to ride the wave. It's really all you can do with Will Fuller.
Yep, definitely. All right, we're going to move on to tight ends, and we'll do a clock check at that point and see what we're going to do after that. So tight ends, Petey, why don't you take us out with your tight end?
All right, I'm going to go with a second-year guy up north in Minnesota. I'm gonna go with a little Irv Smith there.
Oh yeah.
That's
my territory right there.
How was my accent? Like 7?
No, you're pretty good. I'll give it an 8.
I mean, Irv Smith played all 16 games in his rookie year, starting in 6 of them last year. The yardage, 344, touchdowns, only 2. But now coming into his second year, Kyle Rudolph is still there. He's still lingering around with his walker. He'll pop up every now and then and vulture a touchdown. But there was definitely rapport shown between Smith and Cousins. And now that Diggs has gone to Buffalo, which I don't know why Minnesotans hate us for that. It's all over Twitter, and I don't understand it. Guys, get over it. Anyway, you got Justin Jefferson for it, which brings me to the next point. You've got Thielen and a rookie wide receiver, and then you have a tight end that you had a season with, growing a rapport with. So I just think that Smith's targets are only going to increase. Rudolph's are going to decrease, hopefully, this year. But I think Irv Smith is a great late round flyer tight end that could produce for you. He'd be a good tight end too on your squad. And if you really want to be risky, yeah, you could plug him in as your tight end 1, but you might be able to get him a little bit later than a guy like Jonnu Smith, who I've seen go for people's tight end 1s. Even Jack Doyle, kind of a little bit after that tier of tight ends. So again, another late round value.
It'll be interesting to see in how many leagues that are just one tight end, there's not a tight end premium, whatever, how many leagues he actually gets drafted and how many leagues he ends up being. We always talk about waiver wire darlings, by the end of the season. And I definitely see him being one of those tight ends. There have been a few this offseason so far that I think could easily fall into that boat. Tight end's super deep this year, so I feel like it's tough to go in on those guys, but they're definitely on speed dial. Like I'm pretty sure I have a dynasty league that's 10 teams. It's kind of smaller benches than you would expect. And he's actually on the waivers just because it's tough to carry so many. But I mean, as JB just said, like they're splitting him out in the slot. I've seen them splitting him out wide. I've seen them doing everything. And just right now, I just happened to Google his name. And there was an article by the Minnesota Vikings 5 hours ago talking about how like he's showing he's ready to take the next step. And there's a realistic chance he is their 3rd receiving option. Like that's crazy. But he was awesome. I think he was a 2nd round pick coming out of Bama. So he has the chops to be that. And we all know that rookie tight ends take forever to come on. And if he can start doing it in his second year, like you said, everything is primed for him to have a good season. And especially if you're in a keeper league, dynasty league, I mean, going into next year, he's going to probably be their tight end. I don't know why they would keep Kyle around other than just to be like a red zone specialist or something like that. So I'm all in. I know Kevin in the offseason was the first one to really turn me on to Irv Smith Jr. So I'm all about it. I think it's a fantastic idea, fantastic pick here.
Yeah, for sure. And I'll actually expand on what you said about rookie tight ends. And for a year 2 breakout rate, and this is an article on RotoViz by Sam Wallace, who we had on a little while ago, that tight ends that when they come into the league at age 21 in their second year, their breakout rate is double age 22, age 23, and age 24. He's going to be 22 years old if he's not already. I think Irv Smith, with the opportunity that he could get in that offense, and you look at Justin Jefferson, maybe not asserting himself, at least in camp reports, at least right away. You still got Thielen there. There's room there for Irv Smith to kind of take over, to play the slot. Him and Kyle Rudolph, can coexist together. They did play a lot of 12 personnel, the second most to the Eagles last year. So, we've also seen, with red zone usage, I believe it was Irv Smith who had 10 red zone targets compared to Rudolph's 11 last year. And it's only, I think it's just it's going to go the other way for Rudolph, and it's going to go right for Irv Smith. So, the opportunity is there for Irv Smith to vastly outperform his ADP. When you're talking about guys that, you're talking about the Fants, you're talking about Hawkinson, who have the ability to go up there. Irv Smith, you're getting 5 to 6 rounds after that. He's pretty much an afterthought in non-premium leagues. So, hopefully, with this news, maybe his ADP starts to spike up a little bit when people start seeing that. But yeah, Irv Smith is a great ship to have as far as if you're drafting just at the end of your bench, a kind of lottery ticket at a not so. I mean, it's definitely a deeper position now, but when you're looking at guys with athletic profiles like that, that's the guys that you want to have on the end of the bench that can really hit a home run for you.
Yeah. I mean, do you think that, Mark Andrews was a late round darling last year, and look what happened. I mean, do you see Irv Smith maybe repeating kind of what Mark Andrews did last season in his second year?
I don't, but I think that it's the right mindset, but it's a little too much to say that Andrews thing. I mean, I think it's going to be difficult to find an Andrews this year. I could see him being a poor man's Darren Waller type thing and being maybe a little bit more involved. I guess that's actually a terrible comp, but I'm just trying to think there are other people that I think will end up being more of the Andrews build, kind of like a Mike Gesicki type thing. I think fits that a little bit more. My main concern is actually just Kirk Cousins and like how much are they going to throw the ball. Now that Gary Kubiak's going to be more involved, I think that does bode well. But to me, like that, that's why I think it's like a right train of thought in that I think by the end of the season, he will drastically outperform his ADP. I think there's a good chance he's top 12. It's just getting up into the top 6 might be a tall task, just given that you have Thielen and Jefferson. But if Thielen goes down, which he has before, that's where I could see Smith all of a sudden vaulting up and having a Tyler Higbee-esque type thing.
Yeah, it's a tough proposition to say Mark Andrews with him, because Mark Andrews, honestly, when you're looking at tight ends and looking at them breaking out, that might be the we saw Waller and Andrews just break out in almost outlier type seasons. So it's very tough to kind of try to prognosticate the next Mark Andrews, that type of guy. But if anybody can do it with that athletic profile, it's Irv Smith. It's just, I don't see the opportunity being there for him unless he just absolutely asserts himself. I guess by injury, he needs other factors to be able to get to that or anywhere close to that level.
That's fair. I mean, Mark Andrews by midseason was the number 1 receiving target on the Ravens for Lamar. Mm-hmm. So With Thielen being there and Justin Jefferson, even though still a rookie, Irv Smith has some target competition there. But again, like you said, we've seen Thielen go down. So if those factors do play out, it could turn into a very profitable season for Irv Smith. I guess just out of all of the second-year tight ends, I like him the best.
Yeah,
that's what I'm getting at when I guess that was really what I was getting at with my Mark Andrews comparison. Is at this time last year when I was looking at Mark Andrews, he was my favorite of the second-year tight ends. Whoever everybody else was off the top of my head, I can't remember, but
yeah. Well, we'll see. I mean, I think all of us would be really pumped if it did happen.
That was a lot of time spent on Irv Smith. So
he deserves it. God damn it. Gary, who's your tight end riser?
So speaking of like the Mark Andrews of this year, I mean Hayden Hurst, so he gets traded for a second round pick to the Falcons, who let Austin Hooper walk, and I think that I just think Hayden Hurst is just going to be a safe floor with some upside. I don't think he'll be quite what Hooper was that last year when he was like prior to injury. I mean, he was the tight end too. I don't think he'll be quite up there, but I mean, he was a first round pick. He has all the attributes to be a stud tight end in the NFL, and it's just a matter of getting him the snap percentage, getting him the targets. I mean, we've seen Julio struggle in the end zone. We've seen Todd Gurley's knees not always be super functional, and obviously Calvin Ridley's there, Russell Gage, and I think that there's just a nice fit for Hayden Hurst. Obviously, going into the offseason, is ADP was a little bit lower. Now he's tight end 8, and so I'm a little nervous that there's not a ton of upside just because he's going behind Ertz, Waller, Gronk, who I would take him over Gronk, then Evan Ingram, and then there's kind of everyone behind him. So it just depends on where you can get Hayden Hurst, and if you can get him as a value, I definitely think he's before the tier of Jared Cook, Noah Fant, Hoopers, Hawkinsons that I'm probably not going to be touching. Jared Cook maybe, but the other guys I'm probably not going to be touching. So I think he's just going to be a really nice PPR floor, and maybe he'll get some touchdowns here and there, and maybe he'll surprise and get even more.
Yeah, Hurst is tough because, I was so used to drafting him in that, Gesicki, Cook, that kind of range, and now he's well above that, and now he's not of value how, we were drafting him pretty much everywhere he could find him. Now guys are even reaching for him as like maybe tight end 5 or 6. They're drafting him in lockstep with guys like Ingram and Waller, and it's kind of wild. But you know what? I get it, because you're talking about 600 plus pass attempts in the Falcons offense. They got to go somewhere, right? And they can't all go to Julio. They can't all go to Ridley. So, Hayden, you got to figure the Falcons, before they didn't even entertain Austin Hooper. They just let him go, and they traded a second round pick for Hurst. Clearly they, had their eyes set on him being that tight end option there. We never really saw him in extended action in Baltimore. So we know he's got a little bit of, certainly a better athletic profile than Austin Hooper gives you. So I think he's got a really good chance. Obviously that offense is just a well-oiled machine. If Ryan can just limit some of the turnovers, they're going to be throwing because their defense is god awful. So, get Hayden Hurst as tight end 6. I don't know about it, but I get it. I'm probably not. I don't think I'm getting him anymore. In leagues I drafted a couple months ago, I was getting him pretty much wherever I wanted before the 10th round, 11, maybe even 11th round. Now he doesn't go past maybe the middle of the 7th. It's tough, but I get it, because Hayden Hurst has a chance to get into that top 5. In that offense, he's got just a supreme opportunity.
For sure.
I saw Hurst go in a 5th in a league. I forget which league it was, but I
mean, if he's going behind Ertz and Waller, like it doesn't surprise me. if that's where tight ends are going, then so be it. But it's still, if tight ends are going that early, I'm just gonna wait.
It was early. I mean, I want to say it was like he was tight end 6 off the board.
Yeah,
it was early.
Yeah, and it happens, and I get it. I think in my Scott Fishbowl league, I think he went in the 4th. Honestly,
again, if that's your guy, get your guy. That's
SFB is a totally different thing. It's tight end premium, so it just all depends on league format.
Yeah, there's get your guy, and then there's other things, but
there's CEH 103.
Yeah.
People don't forget Kevin. Kevin, who's your tight end?
You son of a bitch. So my guy is someone that I haven't really been on that much this offseason, but a circumstance that's happened this week has made me kind of take a deeper look into the situation. That's Hunter Henry. So Hunter Henry's a guy that, like a Jared Cook, he has the tendency to just fall in drafts and becomes just a screaming value. If you're out there, he can go as low as like tight end, like 12 or 13. And we know he has the talent to be, a stud tight end. He gets hurt. He can't stay on the field, but, that's kind of baked into why he slides a little bit. So I don't mind him as a value, and I'm going to look at it this way because it's an avenue that not a lot of people go to when they're trying to talk up Hunter Henry. Is that when Tyrod Taylor, when he was with Buffalo from 15 to 17, he made Charles Clay super relevant, and he targeted him more than Robert Woods and Sammy Watkins in the first 2 seasons, and then when they both left, I believe it was McCoy who saw 77 targets, Clay had 74. So we know Taylor can get the ball to a tight end. Hunter Henry will be the best tight end that he plays with. So, I mean, you look at that, there's definitely opportunity there for Hunter Henry. And with Mike Williams' shoulder injury, we'll see what happens with that, if it's a week-to-week thing. But we've been talking about the Chargers, a target distribution being very narrow, in that it really revolves around those 3 guys, or 4 guys, I should say, and Eckler, Williams, Allen, and Henry as top end options. Now you just shrank it down to 3 people. There's going to be room for Henry in there. I don't care if Tyrod Taylor's only thrown the ball no more than 430 times in his career, in a season. There's going to be opportunity there for Hunter Henry, certainly at a shallow position. If you can get him as your tight, as the 12th tight end off the board and start him, and maybe pair him with a guy like Herb Smith, that is just it's screaming value all the way. So, that injury by Mike Williams has kind of opened my eyes a little bit. Now, I'm not saying Hunter Henry's going to be a top 3 guy. I don't think anybody's saying that, but he's certainly got the value and the, we talk about how talented a guy is. Hunter Henry is certainly that talented guy that we've seen just in spurts. Yeah.
I was thinking about the Clay but with Tyrod with Clay yesterday. And I don't own Henry anywhere other than a couple FC eliminators or whatnot, and those don't count. And then I was thinking about Clay, and like Clay was one of those guys where it just kind of got dropped from everybody's roster, and then someone else picked him up the next week and just rotated around whoever needed a tight end that week. And he was kind of Mr. not consistent, but Mr. waiver wire consistent. And if Tyrod could do that same thing, especially like you said, with Mike out and some rookies behind them, he's going to probably actually return on his value. I don't know if he's ever going to go above being his like tight end 6, 7, 8, whatever it is, but it's not going to be a bad pick. It's just not going to be one that's going to get you the next Kittle.
Right. He's not going to win. He's not going to just outright win you a league. That's not going to, that's not Hunter Henry, but he can be a guy that keeps the ship steady for you.
Yeah.
At that position where a lot of guys tend to stream it.
Yep. Okay. We normally want 60 minutes. Ironically, I cut the show doc before down to 12 players, and we would have been perfectly money on the spot, or 16 players. And here we are at the halfway point. So I don't want us to go super long. So do you guys think we can do a lightning round of each of our fallers?
Well, you know what we could do, because I already talked. Put a thing in our group chat that we got going on. Clearly, you haven't looked at your phone, so
I have not.
So we're talking about maybe doing a Fallers episode maybe this weekend if you're game, Gary.
Yes.
We'll talk logistics, but
so let's do that then. Let's do a Fallers this weekend. All right, like on Sunday.
Look at that. Bonus Fighting Chance Live.
Boom, boom.
That's how we do that. Before we go, though, there's a couple questions I want to get to in the chat here. So I'm going to put it up right now. How early will you guys draft Terry McLaurin and Michael Gallup? I really want both guys in all of my PPR leagues. Gary.
Can I?
Petey.
I was actually going to jump. You know what? Because I'll admit, I actually am putting McLaurin on my fallers list. I don't trust the Washington football team at all. You couldn't pay me to take any Washington football team player. What's going on that team this year? The question now at quarterback, Alex Smith, he's coming. I don't know if he's actually really coming back. I mean, I don't know if we'll see him on a field again. But you had an offensive line turn on Haskins last year. Did they figure that out? Did they figure anything else out that's going on in that shithole of a organization? It's bananas what's going on there. I don't want anything to do with the Washington football team. So McLaurin, sure, if you want him, I'm not taking. If it's like the 7th round and he's there, fine, I'll take him. But I'm not taking him where he's going.
I have a counter to that, and it's a question, and that's why is their situation any worse this year than it was last year?
I think we were seeing the evolution of the situation last year, and now we're seeing the fallout to the situation. And has there really been any clear-cut signs of, let's just keep it simple, the offensive line completely just turning on their quarterback? Okay, did that get rectified? Did we hear anything about it? Did they have a new offensive line? Did they all get into a powwow and pass the hash pipe and say everything's A-okay? Like, I have no idea. And just with everything else going on in that organization right now, I don't want anything to do with it.
It's funny because I've redid my wide receiver rankings. I'm going to put them out this weekend on fightingchancefantasy.com so you can look for those. But he's my wide receiver 15. I just think that he is talented enough to be able to take the crap that is given to him. He has a rapport with Haskins going back to Ohio State. But you look at what he did last year in arguably a worse situation than it would be this year, because now you've got Haskins there for the full season, barring injuries certainly, but and we'll see what happens with Alex Smith. But at least at the outset, you've got Dwayne Haskins there, but he saw 37% of that team's air yards. He's a lock for 120 targets. I just don't think that, now you've got Kelvin Harmon hurt, you're breaking in rookies. I think just with the talent that he has, I think he has an A.J. Brown type ceiling. He's going to get an elite target share in that offense at the very least. So the opportunity is all his. He can do whatever he wants with it. Maybe he gets up to 27, 28, and he'll get 130, 140 targets. It's certainly possible, with how not good that team is going to be. Them being down, they could just force feed him. Terry McLaurin, I'm betting on the talent because we saw him just absolutely ball out. And yeah, the floor is pretty low for McLaurin, but he has week winning upside every week, in that offense. So I'll be totally happy taking Terry McLaurin if he, in the 4th round. And to Michael Gallup, I just put out a tweet today about Michael Gallup, about how are people going to just totally dismiss, great receivers just because of the other receivers in the offense. I don't get it. Here it is, fading talented receivers and high volume offenses because they play with other talented receivers is probably not an ideal strategy. That was the main argument with Michael Gallup coming out of the draft. Oh, are they going to cannibalize each other? No, and maybe I think I did make a little bit of an allusion to that take earlier, but those guys are going to be in lockstep with each other. We've seen Mike McCarthy roll out 3 wide receivers and make all 3 relevant in Green Bay. And I would take those 3 certainly over the guys that he had in Jordy Nelson, Greg Jennings, James Jones. I would take Lamb, Cooper, and Gallup over those 3 as far as talent wise. And then he's got Dak Prescott throwing the ball. Yeah, he's no Aaron Rodgers, but that offense is going to absolutely light things up. So Michael Gallup, where do I have him in my rankings? I have Gallup. He is literally just outside of that Cooper Kupp, Amari Cooper, Parker, Lockett. He's just outside of that tier, but he's the top of that Boyd, Diggs, Allen, Marquise Brown tier for me at wide receiver 25. I love Michael Gallup, and I think just he's going to assert himself. People think maybe he's the 2 in that offense, but it's really, he plays like a 1. So does Cooper. If Lamb can play against slot receivers, he can be a 1 as well. So it's an embarrassment of riches for the Cowboys, and I have no problem taking guys like that at cost.
Yeah.
I think that receiving core is more like 1A, 1B, 2A instead of 1, 2, 3 guys. And I think that the Cowboys are going to be this year what everyone expected them to be last year. So I'm very excited to see what comes out of Dallas. Sorry, Gary, I didn't mean to cut you off. I just wanted to get that in real quick.
You're good. I think for the question, just real quick, that Flintstone was asking about, where are you going to take McLaurin or Gallup? I think that there are 2 guys that reach to, like, get your guy. Yeah. I'm going to split the difference between you guys, and I'm just looking at Fantasy Football Calculator, guys going before him, AJ Brown, DK, Chark, Lockett. All of those for me are above McLaurin. But if you prefer McLaurin over any of those guys, like, it seems like McLaurin kind of starts the next tier of Allen, Hilton, Sutton, Hollywood, Diggs, Parker, and so on. And I'm probably not going to own any Terry McLaurin just because at that spot, I'm rather going to go for the upside of Hollywood or Fuller. But I think that McLaurin has a nice floor. So definitely, probably somewhere in either the 4th or the 5th, you're going to have to go for McLaurin. And then for Gallup, he's just one of those guys that I see it, and he's steady. I hope this doesn't offend people in me saying this, but it's kind of a Tyler Boyd-esque person where he's going to put up points, and I'm probably going to be annoyed that I didn't draft him, but I just don't know if he is the type of receiver at that point that I'm going to be going for. In the 7th or 8th, I might be looking maybe again back at running back or tight end, and it just happens to fall that way. But even just because, I listen to Fantasy Footballers and they've been talking to Gallup up a whole bunch lately. So it's definitely been on my brain trying to figure out where I think about him. So, but they're 2 guys that no one's going to fault you if you reach up on them, especially with Gallup. Even if anyone makes fun of you, ultimately, like, Lamb at his floor is Randall Cobb last year. And if that happens, then you've got a good bet in Gallup. And then the other question, which I'm guessing is also from the same guy, would you take Devontae, I'm assuming Adams, over, say, a Henry or CH in PPR? My answer is no, I would not.
Yes.
That Kevin used to be RB or a bust, and now has switched to 0 RB or at least modified version. I'm very comfortable personally waiting, and I will pretty much always take, other than Michael Thomas, a running back in the 1st, because I know the wide receivers that I can get in the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th. I'm very comfortable passing on Adams. That being said, I think that Adams is, I can't say he's going to finish over Michael Thomas, but of anyone not named Michael Thomas, it should be Devontae Adams, because I really do think he's going to flirt with almost 200 targets.
If we're talking PPR, I mean, Adams is going to crush Henry and Hilaire with regards to receptions. But like Gary, like you were saying, I'm taking a running back in the 1st round. I don't subscribe. Kevin, I read your article. It was beautifully written.
Yeah,
it
was
grammatically
Thank you.
spot on. Spelling was great.
Thank you, Grammarly, by the way.
But yeah, I'm not subscribing to the Zero RB. You're out of your damn mind.
To be fair, that was something that everybody's been saying anyway. So
yeah.
I've seen it everywhere. It's been crazy, the whole Zero RB thing. I mean, I've seen it a bunch of times before your article came out and everything. I just don't get it. I really don't. I mean, RB is the position that I stack up on. I look to see, before making any pick in any round, even if I have 4 running backs, I'm seeing what the best running back is in that round, just to see if it's worth having for my fifth guy.
Yep.
Before I look at any other position. I could have 0 wide receivers, 0 tight ends, and 4 running backs. I'm still looking to see who the best running back is on the board at that given point. So
I get it.
Next week.
I mean, what'd you say, Gary?
We figured out our next week topic. We're gonna break down Zero RB first.
We're just gonna shit on Zero RB. I get it. No, it's and the thing is too, with that question, I'm gonna pull it up again. Derrick Henry's been working on his pass receiving. So say what you want about that. If he can, I mean, I'm not trying to forecast here, but you know, because the floor is so low on that. But if he can get 50 targets and, you know, get a little bit of usage in that department, you know, he's probably what, RB 3, 4. He if we knew he was going to get 50 to 55 targets, he would be going ahead of Kamara in drafts. Is that fair to say? Would you draft him would you draft him after CMC and Barkley and Elliott?
Yeah.
Because I would.
yes.
Yeah. So, I mean, you know, say what you want about Derrick Henry. You know, what he does, he's great at it. You know, just add that little bit of a wrinkle, because we've seen Darrington Evans, you know, really fall off, at least in camp. And maybe Derrick Henry gets more of those 3rd round roles because they don't have a Deion Lewis anymore. And maybe they were kind of banking a little bit on Darrington Evans. They still have a couple, you know, a couple of those running backs. I think was it Dalen Dawkins, I think, and Blazing Game, just those guys that they threw out there in the playoffs. But, you know, Derrick Henry adds that to his game. He's an easy RB4, at least in my book. And Edwards-Helaire, it's just based on I will take Adams solidly over CEH, just because we know what we're going to get out of Adams, you know, versus CEH, where, you know, maybe he's going to cede a little bit of time to either DeAndre Washington or Darrell Williams being pretty much anointed as the RB2 in Kansas City, at least for right now. So, but yeah, I'll take Adams over both of those guys. It's not even a 0 RB case. I just think that, yeah, I think he's got a 200 target. You know, he's got that in his range of outcomes.
Yeah. All right. So I guess we're going to figure out a time to do the follow show. It won't be tomorrow, I can tell you that, because I got my fantasy football draft going on, and my wife will kill me if I try to insert more football tomorrow. So it'll probably be on Sunday. So we'll tweet that out and go from there. And yeah, hope everybody has a good night. I'll let Kevin. He's better at it.
Oh God. So yeah, this is fun, Petey. Again, tell us where we can find you and all that, and then we'll wrap her up.
At Petey Stitz on Twitter. I'm incredibly active and I follow back. So there's that.
Follow back.
That's an added caveat there. You don't get that with just anybody, people.
I'm too lazy.
I get it mixed up and shit. I feel bad that, you know, I have to go through them like, who didn't? Oh shit, I didn't follow him. All right, because I tend to follow most everybody anyway, as long as you're not an asshole. So, but
the only ones I don't follow back is if you have a string of random numbers that come after the first 3 letters in the handle.
And you follow
90210.
3 followers.
Yeah.
You're like,
I look. Yeah. They have like 1 follower, and it's no one that I know. So.
The one thing, and I think I can speak for all 3 of us, is that if anybody is still listening, if you guys have football drafts, like DM us if you have questions. We're always happy to answer them. You might, maybe after you're getting this far, you're like, screw that, I have no interest. But if you do, our DMs are pretty much always open. You can probably reach one of us. Check out fightingchancefantasy.com. We have a ton of articles up there about all sorts of stuff. UFC, the stuff Petey's been doing. Kevin has some rankings. Kevin is now expert consensus ranking in the Fantasy Football Pros expert ECR rankings. But yeah, on fightingchancefantasy.com, we got a whole bunch of stuff. Even one of our writers is now writing for the fantasyfootballers.com. So we got a whole bunch of stuff. Yeah. Shout out to Casey Kasem. And yeah, Petey, thanks, man. It's awesome. I appreciate you being here.
Petey, pleasure as always. Gary, obviously a pleasure as always.
Yes,
thank you all who've stuck with us for the last hour and a half. This was Fighting Chance Live. We will be back on Sunday at some point. We will make sure we tweet it out and let you guys know an approximate time for when we stream. But we took care of the risers today. We'll do the followers. This will be the negative show where we just shit on everybody. So
I love
it's so easy to do and it's fun. I'm not gonna lie.
I'm the exact opposite.
But yeah, thank you guys and for watching. I'm Kevin Tompkins for Gary Haddow and Petey Stitz. Have a great night, everybody.
See ya.
Good night.